Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Lauren, and today I have a really exciting, relatively new type of art that I'm going to be exploring, which is called Neurographic Art. It is based on a technique that was formalized by a psychologist called Pavel Piskarev in 2014, so it's a relatively new art form. Basically, this art technique is a way of transforming things that are happening inside you, fear, stress, anything that you're dealing with, and transforming it from the inside of your head to onto the paper. It's actually really interesting to create it, and there's a certain technique or way to go about doing it, which I'm going to show you in the video. In this video I'm making 2 neurographic art pieces. I definitely recommend watching right till the end so you can kind of get the full zhuzh of what this is all about, and hopefully you'll be inspired to try this technique yourself. So you might have noticed the picture behind me, which is a pencil drawing that I did in high school of Augustus Rodin's The Thinker sculpture, and I have this picture from all those years ago, and whenever I look back on it, it really reminds me of overthinking. I think it's important to kind of try to get out of your head. Sometimes I think we overthink way too much. I know I am totally guilty of this, and in the end the thoughts are all just swimming in your head, and you don't even know how to process them. So this art form, neurographic art, is a really great way to kind of just slow down, get everything onto the paper, and create a really cool art piece in the process of dealing with all these things that you're thinking about. So let's get right into the video. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and all of that kind of really helps the channel. So thanks so much and enjoy. Okay, so first of all, you want to get some sort of marker, or it can also be a pencil or any fine liner, and make some shapes on your page. These shapes can be fluid, really just this little blob thing that I'm making here, or they can be circular or even geometric shapes are fine too. Any kind of markings of shapes on your paper. So I'm making all of those. I want to kind of fill all the space. Then you want to take lines that go from one side of the page all the way to the other, and just sort of be free with this movement. Don't think about it too much. The lines can cross each other, they can cross over the shapes, and you make a couple of those until you feel like you filled, as much of your space as you want on your paper. Then what you want to do is take your marker, and everywhere that you see the corners, you want to make these corners rounded. So as you can see here, I am going around and just rounding those corners in, and you do this throughout the whole artwork. So this is kind of the time where you can let your mind just sort of really focus on what you're doing, and this is the part of the process that helps you kind of slow down and not think too much, because you're really focusing on making these corners rounded, so your mind is honing in on that specific task. So now we're at the part of the artwork where you're going to add color. Color can be added using any art materials. You could use markers, you can use watercolor paint, you could use inks, you could use pencils, or even acrylic paints could work as well. I chose in this case to use markers. I've laid out a couple of colors that I want to use, and I do my technique in this way, but you can really add color in any way that you want, just however your mind feels that you want to add color. So I like to do it where I do sometimes I do half of the shape in a color and then I leave the other half for a different color. Sometimes I do it where I round the edges of the shape with the color, and other times I do it where I create the color as a little blob inside the shape, like I'm doing over here. And you can do this, like I said, however you want. This is just how I chose to do it. So this is a little bit further along in the process, where I've kept adding different colors to the different sections of the artwork and incorporating, maybe you want to choose a color theme and do it that way, or you could just use tons of different colors. I really love color, so for me it was just naturally something that I went to was adding like as many different colors as possible. And while you're creating this piece and continuing to add these colors, it's like you'll find that either your mind will slow down and you might not think about anything when you're creating this. You might just only be thinking about adding this bit of yellow right now to the section, which is quite nice because it's almost like a meditative process. Like your mind just kind of quietens right down and you focus on the task that you're doing. Or you might find that while you're doing this, certain thoughts will pop into your head and you would maybe expand on thinking about those thoughts as you are drawing. So that was the first piece I created, which showed you kind of the basic technique of creating neurographic art. For my next piece, I'm going to, instead of using a permanent marker, I'm going to be using a fineliner. The fineliner, the difference is that it kind of slowed things down even more, and it's a little bit more detailed and a longer process. So if you have more time, then maybe using a fineliner would be a nice idea. The lines are just finer and the look is kind of different as well in the end. So I used the same technique. I made all these shapes and then I drew free-flowing lines across the page, overlapping the shapes, and just kind of did that however my mind wanted to do it. And then the next step was obviously to round those corners. Making this work with the fineliner really gave me a chance to sit and think about things that were happening at the time when I was making this artwork. It was actually on a day where I was feeling kind of stressed out and my mind was racing and I was thinking about a whole bunch of different things. So creating this piece in this slow kind of manner and very like specifically focused on these lines really helped me to think and process all the thoughts that I was having that day. So I definitely would recommend trying different materials when you create neurographic art, just to see kind of the effect that it has, if it allows you to slow down in a different way, if it helps your mind move in a different way as well. So obviously now I added color. I chose to use sharpie markers for the adding of color, and I used like a bunch of different colors again, and I really just experimented with wild imaginings of wherever my mind wanted to add color, I added it. And I did in the same technique where I do like half the shape. Sometimes I do the inside of the shape, sometimes I do the border of the shape. And I just kept adding and adding and adding. And I love this color combination right here. I think this is really pretty.
So now that I finished adding all of the color to my pieces, I decided that I would take my permanent marker and create some markings within the shapes, because I felt like I wanted to keep adding. I was really enjoying making this piece of neurographic art and getting kind of lost in the process of it, sort of meditating and focusing on processing thoughts. So I just wanted to keep going. So I thought making these patterns and markings and lines would kind of just help prolong the process, and I really like how this turned out. It's almost like a kind of abstracted artwork in a way, and I just filled these patterns in whatever was coming to my mind, like squiggles and spirals and little dots. So the final thing I did was I used a white Posca marker, and I also added some white little dots because this piece was so colorful. I kind of was like, okay, I need to like bring back in a tiny bit of white. So adding the patterns with the white sort of, I think helped finish off the piece and got that sort of final look that I was looking for. Even though with neurographic art, you're not really... you don't necessarily have to have a destination in mind with your artwork, because basically you're just focusing on creating a piece bit by bit and just seeing where it goes. So when I thought to add the white markings, it was just kind of like, okay, it's something else that I want to add. I want to keep making this artwork. So that sort of finalizes the process of creating neurographic art. I'd really recommend giving this type of art technique a shot if you are interested in ways to kind of use art as a form of processing thoughts and feelings, processing stresses. Neurographic art really helps de-stress, so I would definitely recommend giving this a shot. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again soon.